The following is an AZPM original production.
Arizona Science is supported by Research Corporation for Science Advancement.
For AZPM, I'm Leslie Tolbert, Regents Professor Emerita in Neuroscience at the University of Arizona, and this is Arizona Science. Today, we'll speak with Theresa Crimmins, Associate Professor in the School of Natural Resources and the Environment, and Director of the U.S. National Phenology Network. Welcome, Theresa.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I'm thrilled to be here.
You've come to focus your research on something called phenology. Could you define that word for us? Phenology is not a word most of us understand.
You are right. It actually is a phenomenon that we're all really familiar with. It's just an old-fashioned word that doesn't get used much. It refers to when stuff happens in plants and animals seasonally. So, for example, I have a mama hummingbird who's fledging broad-billed hummingbird babies right now on my back porch. And when that is happening, the fact that that's happening right now, that is phenological in nature. The fact that we just had all the saguaros finish flowering and their fruits have ripened and fallen off, when those things happen is phenology. And the reason why we care about this is because when those events occur is very much the function of local conditions, how hot it's been, how wet it's been, how long the days are. And so, as you can probably imagine, as our climate is changing, the conditions are changing, and we are starting to see different events occur at different times than when they had in the past.
You are gathering data on the seasonal changes in nature and noticing changes that are occurring in a systematic way that suggests real climate change. Would that be a fair way to put it?
Yes, definitely. So how we are able to know this is because we're very fortunate that there were some individuals in the historic past that took very good records. And so one of the ways that we can identify and evaluate how things have changed is by collecting observations on those same species in the same locations and comparing when those events occurred to when folks documented them in the past.
So do you see changes in migratory patterns? Do you see changes in other animal behaviors that are as useful as what you're describing seeing in plants?
Yeah, there are definitely distinct patterns. One of the biggest challenges for being able to really fully understand that is historical data. Birds are a group of taxa that people really like to observe, and so we have the best information about birds, and you're right. Patterns of migration in birds have changed dramatically. One of the consequences that we're seeing with global change is that with this earlier start to spring, we're also seeing a latitudinal compression of the start of spring, where the timing of activity is advancing more rapidly at higher latitudes than it is at lower latitudes. And so what that translates into is spring comes more rapidly at northern latitudes. It's also advancing in the south, but it's advancing more rapidly in the north. And so for migratory species that are trying to keep pace with that, they need to migrate more quickly to get from the south to the north and track their peak food source.
Tell us about some of the specific projects you're working on right now that are gathering a lot of public attention.
What I really want to call attention to is the platform called Nature's Notebook. That is the primary mechanism through which we are getting the data that allows us to assess how things are changing. What we do is invite folks to tell us what they're seeing happening on plants and animals in their yard. And so you basically are invited to choose plants and animals in your backyard and then go out and make repeated observations and let us know, do you see things like open flowers or breaking leaf buds? And what we are doing is building a really robust picture of when things are happening in a whole bunch of species across the whole country. We now have upwards of 40 million records that have been amassed since starting in 2009 for over 2,000 different distinct species. And so that data resource is allowing us to really understand not only how things are changing, but how they are changing differently in different regions and in different seasons and even among different species or species that depend on one another.
Theresa Crimmins is an expert in biodiversity and its links to climate change and is the director of the USA National Phenology Network. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You can listen to this and all Arizona Science conversations at azpm.org/ Arizona Science. I'm Leslie Tolbert.
Thank you to Research Corporation for Science Advancement for their support of Arizona Science. AZPM podcasts are made possible in part by donations from listeners like you. Learn more at support.azpm.org. Thank you.